We're in 2 Thessalonians chapter 1, looking at the second coming. The topic here in this mini-study is the word to come, verses 9 through 10. These shall be punished. That would be those who were persecuting the Christians in Thessalonica. These will be punished with everlasting destruction from the presence of the Lord and from the glory of his power, when he comes in that day to be glorified in his saints and to be admired among all those who believe, because our testimony among you was believed. So this word to come in verse 10, it has two basic meanings in the New Testament, and by the way, the word in verse 10 is not exactly erkomai, but it's from that family. And you know, the Strong's Concordance, if it gave us every spelling of each Greek word, it would be massive, because in Greek they have suffixes and prefixes, and there's the gender and tense, all kinds of case settings. There's all different ways to write the words. So the Strong Concordance basically groups a family of words together, and I think they're called cognates, the associated words. So in this case we have the Strong's number is G2064, G representing Greek, and so this particular word, it's used in two ways. This first way, to go from one place to another, from one point to another, to be in motion, is used many, many times in the New Testament, although it's very rarely translated to go, even though I just used that word, because it is the idea of motion, but it's generally translated to come. So it's motion from one point to another, and a coming to that second point. The other use is the idea of something coming into existence, or something occurring, and we'll see this in a second with the sixth seal in the book of Revelation. And I use this graphic. I had grabbed it off the internet, and I did want to mention that I don't particularly think that the sixth seal is the end of time, but it will be the end of time as we know it. Jesus said we're going to go back to the days of Noah, and with the great earthquake during the sixth seal, I think we're going to be kicked back to the place where we have a 360-day calendar year. So let's take a look at just two sections that show us the two uses of this word to come. And really, I just also want to say that this can seem very, very basic when we're talking about the word to come, but really this is important because it's going to set us up by way of I don't know if it's contrast or by difference for the next word. We're going to look at the parousia next time, which is also translated coming, but it's important to see the difference between this word and that other Greek word. So we'll emphasize that next time. But here in Matthew 25:31, when the Son of Man comes, erkomai, in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory. He's going to sit on his throne on this earth, and he's going to reign for 1,000 years. He's going to fulfill the promises made to David. Well, he is going to come because he's coming from heaven. He's coming from one place to another, from heaven to earth. So here the Son of Man comes in his glory. That's our word, erkomai. And then we have Revelation chapter 6, the sixth seal. I'm going to pick it up in verse 12. It's a very important chapter here. A lot comes together at the sixth seal. It says, I looked when he opened the sixth seal, and behold, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became like blood, and the stars of heaven fell to the earth as a fig tree drops its late figs when it is shaken by a mighty wind. And then the sky receded as a scroll when it's rolled up, and every mountain and island was moved out of its place. And the kings of the earth, and the great men, the rich men, the commanders, the mighty men, every slave and every free man, hid themselves in the caves and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and the rocks, fall on us and hide us from the, notice too, the face of him who sits on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb, the Father and the Son. And then they say this in verse 17, for the great day of his wrath, and I would say that's the day of the Lord, the day of the Father's wrath, that day has come. And who is able to stand? So they are seeing, as heaven is ripped open and there's all this upheaval, when they see the one who sits upon the throne, they see the wrath of the Lamb, they're going to say, that day it's come upon us. Here we are. In that day, it's come upon us. So a very important use right there. But let's pop back to 2 Thessalonians and read this once again. These shall be punished with everlasting destruction from the presence of the Lord and from the glory of his power when he comes in that day, when he erkomai, when he comes from one point to another from heaven. In that day, you got to get in there and understand what all these, what does day mean in this particular case. But it does say here, to be glorified in his saints and to be admired among all those who believe, because our testimony among you was believed. So we need to really get in and start looking at the next one, Parousia. Which will help us to translate verses like this, or at least to better, not translate, but to understand, get a better understanding of what's going on here. And so we're gonna do that next time. We're gonna take a look at the idea of the Parousia, the arrival, the very presence of the King of Glory.